The rack position's good. But you can see that the error of setting up too close to the weights, like you've got plenty of space towards the end there that you can move to, unless the rule was you have to stay inside the circle or whatever, or whether the terrain's a little bit rough on the outside. I'm not entirely sure, but in terms of making that weight feel lighter in your rack position, moving further out is definitely going to be helpful. Footwork out, move further away. Rack position looks good. It looks like as you're swinging a little bit and you're able to accelerate somewhat. So I think with a little bit of practice, because this weight looks light for you, I think with a little bit of practice, either on the implement or in training, doing some Zercher yoke, practice with racking the weight a little bit further forward and harnessing that. You're showing that when the weight's swinging, you can go a little bit faster and your feet can keep up with it. You're strong enough and your footwork's good enough, your coordination's good enough to go fast. So I just think practicing going a little bit faster, covering more distance with the same time under tension. So what I like about what Kane's doing is he's really set before he even sets off. He's locking in those arms into position. You see some people, they'll get connected, they'll go and stand up, and then their arms are moving around. Whereas you can see what Kane does really well. He locks in position here, right to the edge. He's chalked his arms, so it's so obviously it's not dry. The grip's good, grip solid, and just watch how his upper body and his torso doesn't move as he goes from no tension to all the tension. As he locks in before he sets off, that's it. That's good, and he just. In a locked position. You see his footwork's really good. His feet are passing really close together. Yeah, it looks good. Right at the end. It looks pretty heavy, but it looks like he's not allowing it to go in front of him too much. He's keeping it pretty stacked on his joints. Looks a really solid position. Yeah, pretty good. Really stable torso as well. That was what was key. You see a lot of people swinging from the side. So again, set up here, I think you can go further out, unless, of course, it's not giving you enough clearance off the floor. That might be why he's not right to the edge. So he's going slow, so it's clearly really heavy. So a key thing what you can do when it's heavy and you're going slow is really focus on keeping those feet as close together as possible. They do look close, but I think they can be even closer. You see, like, there's significant daylight as they pass. I feel like if you can, because you're going so slow, you can be really, really deliberate with the steps and make sure that basically, if your feet are passing closer together, you're probably going to be stepping further each rep rather than passing and going out to the side. So you can see that he's posteriorly tilting the pelvis, he's tucking the tailbone under, and that's why it looks so heavy and difficult, but the rack position looks solid and looks strong, so it looks like he can grind it out. So great technique. So this looks really tough. You look at how unstable it is here, by the way. And this is why every setup is significantly different. So, yeah, good work. You can go to the edge a little bit further. But I think a thing that he needs to be doing here, because the weight looks so unstable, is he needs to be aiming to be as stable as possible. So a way that he can do this is by finding a solid rack position, which looks pretty good. You can see that he's tucked his hips under. It looks good in terms of the upper body position. It doesn't look like he's holding it up with his arms. Yeah, it looks really good. But it looks like he's trying to step a little bit wide and a little bit far to me. It looks like he should be. It looks like I think he might do a little bit better taking some slightly shorter steps. You can see actually as he's getting going, look how much more stable that is now. Now he's taking those short, deliberate steps. So the rack position's really good. Yeah, just take the shorter steps to start and make sure you've got a good stable position before you start stepping it. So this is good. I like a little bit of forward lean here that's letting her accelerate, because the weight it does look light for her, the way that she's moving with it. Again, I can't really tell by the video, but I'd be looking to maximize the weight, like getting out to the side as far as you can. But obviously, if she goes a little bit wider, she might not be getting enough clearance here. So that might be the optimal position. Look like you're striding out quite a bit there, which as you stride out quite a bit and take bigger steps, that's going to maximize the swing here. So I think what will generally be better, which you're doing on some of the steps, is actually harnessing shorter steps and not stepping quite as far. But because you look so strong for the weight, allowing the weight to pull you forward a little bit. And Yeah, because you look strong in terms of the upper body for this weight. Just allowing that, instead of having your joint so stacked, allowing it to be in front of you a little bit, and almost harnessing the momentum to pull you forward a little bit to help you with the stride turnover, and increase the stride turnover with slightly shorter steps will, I suspect, help you reduce the swinging, just feel more efficient generally. And I think if you practice this with like longer distance Zercher yokes, I think you'd be confident with some faster footwork. So some lighter work, longer distance with faster steps held out in front of you will be, I suspect, will be helpful, because you'll basically get like a really long distance in before your legs are even starting to tire. You'll get 30-40 seconds deep, and you'll almost feel like you've been freewheeling because you've been harnessing the Conan's pulling you forward. Looks pretty good. Like, he's right to the edge, so he's maximizing the lever. Looks pretty good. If anything, it looks like it's a little bit high. Like, I think that this could be a little bit lower. Almost imagine you're trying to let the Conan's the handle go down towards your belly button a little bit more. It looks like his upper traps are on there. Whereas I'm a massive fan of with stuff like this and farmers in trying to get the lower traps activated and trying to get a low position. So it may not seem significant, but he's like here instead of, I think there's going to be a much more sustainable position in terms of rack, but also it's going to be because you're reducing that moment arm to the hips. It's going to feel lighter any given weight. So yeah, looks pretty good. I'd say your steps are a little bit wide. I'd try and get your feet passing a little bit close to each other. It looks a bit better there actually. Yeah, pretty good. But yeah, getting that rack position lower from the start. Yeah, just this start that is costing a bit of energy. Like, what's happening here? So what we should do at the start is it should almost be like a deadlift or a squat, whereas the start position there should look identical to the where you take the tension and lock out, and your torso position shouldn't change at all. So learn your torso position, and like at the start position, and learn how to maintain it. Like, we don't want to let your back round. We don't want to let your back go backwards too much and hyperextend, and then have to like the energy cost of that recalibration is just getting you off to a bad start. Whereas when you get going, it looks really good. So practicing just some some Zercher yoke pickups, just doing some deadlifts or squats or partial squats or whatever you want to call them. Zercher partial squats, and basically learn how to lock out and get to that ideal lockout position and that ideal rack position without letting your shoulders go too far behind the bar and jolt and having to recalibrate. So you can see he's just swinging there to get going, but once it gets going, it's absolutely brilliant. Looks good. And you can see nice stacked position here. He's not stepping out too far with the feet. Looks really good. It looks like it's a challenging weight, but it looks like he's in a really, really good position, like over the hips all the way through. He's not stepping out too much, so it's not swinging. Yeah, I like it. It's impressive. It's low. You can see that he's not lifting his traps high. Very good. Yeah, again, just on that pickup, I practice pickups and make these like know what your rack position is supposed to feel like when you do, like, say, a Zercher squat or Zercher yoke or Zercher hold, Zercher marching, like this Zercher position here. Know what your rack position feels like home, because you can see, like, a lot of people, they're actually picking the weight up and then recalibrating in that position, which is costing a lot of energy, and then you're just getting yourself off to a bad start. You can see, like, he's putting his shoulders quite far behind the bar. Yeah, it looks pretty good when he gets moving. I think what I would do if I was in that position, but I'm not saying you should do it, because obviously I don't know how well your injuries are, like your back could tolerate it or whatever. But I know for me, if my shoulders are a little bit, my shoulders are behind the bar in that position, what I would do, I'd want my shoulders a little bit more forward and then my tailbone tucked under a little bit more, and basically, like, I'm facilitating the so this position here. I'm almost letting the bar be a little bit forward and offsetting letting the weight go forward so it can pull me forward a little bit, but then offsetting this a little bit by tucking the tailbone, tucking the hips under a little bit. So you can see his back's quite extended there, and his pelvis is almost anteriorly tilted, if anything, or neutral, like basically hips put like sticking back, Whereas I'm saying like tucking the tailbone under for a lot of people can work well. Yeah, so I like this. I really like the pickup's really nice and efficient. The footwork is good in terms of the passing each other really efficiently, because this is a thing that we can take advantage of when you're doing the Conans versus like say other front carries. If you do like say Husafel, sandbags and stuff, because you're having to stop yourself falling over essentially, and you're having to balance each step. There's a lot more balance requirements. You're standing on one leg whilst holding a big weight. So what you're fighting against because you're trying to find more stability is your feet are moving out to the side to give you a more stable base and put you in a stronger position using your hip external rotation, whatever. Whereas with a Conan's wheel, with a Conan's wheel, you're attached to it, and it's providing you that stability and that balance in the same way, in a similar way that, like, say, when you're doing a Viking press compared to a log press, you do a log press, you're having to stabilize everything. Whereas with a Viking press, you're almost using the machine to help you stabilize, and you can put like a bit more into it, etc. So you can use this to your advantage on like both when you're going fast and when you're going heavy on Conans in terms of the footwork. Because you'll see a lot of people, they'll be moving the feet out to the side because that's what they'll be used to when they do front carries, like sandbag carries and stuff. But for every step, you're not covering as much distance. You're wasting. Yeah, you're not covering as much distance per step if you're stepping out to the side. So use the balance and the stability of the yoke, like Steve is here, to double down on that, on the feet passing really closely. Looks good rack position. Say, if anything, possibly being picky. Maybe looks like your arms are a little bit high like that. It looks like your shoulders are shrugged up a little bit. So I suspect that if you basically allow your traps to come down and therefore your elbows to sit lower, and therefore your rack's going to be lower, any given weight is going to feel lighter. And you might find that tucking the hips under a little bit may help you feel strong in this position and feel like you're not being pulled forward with the arms. So yeah, you can just see from the back that his traps are a little bit up. So traps down, any given weight is going to feel lighter. A good way to test this would be short range of motion, like say Zercher pickups, holds, and just go pretty heavy on it, like, and just as a tester. Because if you go like say do some heavy pickups on that, and you go beyond the weight that you can actually shrug up with your traps, you'll realize that you can actually still go a little bit, still lift the weight up, but you just, when you go like say over the maximal of what you've been doing, you'll get to a point where you can still lift it up. You can still lift it, but your traps can't come high anymore. So if you get to that point, then it's like working backwards from that and actually learning that, well, if when I go heavy that my traps can't get high and they stay low, but I can still lift the weight, then maybe my trap should be in that more efficient position all the time. That's the point I'm making. So you can see that he's working harder than he needs to here, because he's picking it up so close to where the weight is. Just move right to the edge. He just needs to be further out. He's working a lot harder than he needs to be there. There could be an argument that he might need to be there to get the clearance, but I think that he'll be able to move out a little bit more, and he's working harder than he needs to. A little tip: what you could do on this, which sometimes like I've done when I go really heavy on the yoke, and I'm using an unfamiliar yoke at comp, say, what I'll do, I'll be picking between points, and I'll be either going for picking between 2 points, and one of the points will be giving me plenty of clearance, but it's making that pickup feel hard, and then my traps will be able to come low, but the pickup will feel really difficult, and if I fail, I might not be able to pick it up again. But then I go to the next height up, or move the crossbar slightly up, and it's a lot easier pickup, but I'm barely getting any clearance off the floor. What I sometimes find, that I've done it when I've done maximal yoke, and I've done it just on days when it feels really heavy. I've gone the height above, and actually I found it easier just shrugging my traps up a tiny little bit to get that little bit of clearance. I found that easier than it would be in for a lower pickup. So that's a little trick, that if you're struggling with clearance, get in your rack position, and if you just like grazing the floor, you might just find that a subtle shrug up just gives you enough clearance, but you're still getting the value of any given weight feeling lighter. Again, here, learn your rack position. It looks unfamiliar there. It looks like you're lifting it up, and then you're shocked, and then you're trying to find where the weight should be, and then you get going, and it looks good. Well, it looks really good, actually. I would say with your footwork, try and get your feet passing closer together. Use the stability of the yoke to help you practice ideal footwork. You don't need to be stable. You don't need to be moving out to the side as much like you would be on a heavy sandbag carry or Husfeld, because you're attached to this thing that's going to stop you falling over. Well, make sure those feet are passing really close together. Just looks like a little bit more practice would do, because like prior to the comp, and again doing Zercher yoke carries a little bit lighter, practicing harnessing the rack position being a little bit in front of you, and almost using the weight to pull you forward a little bit, because it looks like there's the segment to this where you are going a little bit faster with the footwork. And if you practice that in training, you're just going to be able to cover more distance in any given time slot. So again, for me, this rack position here, if this was me, and I can only speak about me because I know how my body feels, I would feel that you in this extended back position, I'd feel like I'm not in a good position there to step forward with my shoulders like almost so far behind the bar or behind where I'm attached. I find it difficult or it's costing me more energy to step forward. So what I would try and do personally, if it was me, would be try and get my shoulders over the yoke a little bit, over the handle a little bit more, to allow me to facilitate moving forward a little bit quicker, which is obviously going to, if you don't do anything with the pelvis, is obviously going to feel heavier in the rack position. So to offset this, I would tuck the hips under. So a cue that I have used with people that works well, providing that they've got the no back pain, no hip pain or whatever, is trying to get your shoulders over a little bit more while simultaneously getting your hips under it a little bit more. And this may help you get into the position where you can go for faster footwork but still feel stable without the weight wanting to fall out of the rack position. Probably go a little bit wider, but if you feel like that's as wide as you can go whilst getting enough clearance, then that's fine, because if you look at his rack position's really good. Like his traps are low. Yeah, he's not holding tension in his arms. He's letting it sit down. It looks really good. I would say as doubling down on what you're already doing really well. Like in training, I would practice making this rack position even lower to try and reduce that moment arm between the handle and your hips. Is just trying to engage the lower traps and let your elbows go low, and imagine that you're trying to let the handle sink into your belly button. The lower that you can be attached to it, then any given weight is going to feel lighter. So if you think that it's not like a sandbag or a Husa or an odd object where you're having to kind of, you sometimes have to lift it a little bit higher to get enough clearance for the legs. Whereas the Conans, you want it as low as possible because you've got plenty of leg clearance. So you want to be attached to that literally as low as possible. What you can do sometimes with a belt, if you can get away with it, is use the belt quite low and almost dig your elbows into the side. So you're almost using your elbows as a braking mechanism to stop the elbows dropping down to the side. So 2 things here for Evans. I would say that you can move out a little bit further. I think you're getting enough clearance there to move out a little bit more to the end and increase that lever. And another thing is practice some pickups in isolation, because you were bent over in this position here, right? In this position here, knees are flexed, ankles are flexed, hips are flexed, back's flexed a little bit. This is a costly position, and obviously the heavier, like you're an open level guy, like the heavier amount of mass that you're carrying in a flex position where your joints aren't stacked on top of each other, the more costly it is. Yeah, like you're really, really strong, but just bend over for 30 seconds or a minute with no extra weight, and it's going to be costly in terms of energy expenditure compared to being stood up where your joints are stacked on top of each other. So if we can be skillful and minimize the time spent in any kind of flex position possible on any given exercise, then that's going to be really, really valuable. So if you think of, like, say, setting up for a deadlift, for instance, you don't attach yourself to the bar and then wait 30 seconds in a bent over position, because you know that everything is going to be fatigued. Your hamstrings, your glutes, your back, or whatever is going to be fatigued before you start. So the same principle here. So a way that we can learn this is just get more skilled at knowing that, right, I know I need to connect there, and when I take the tension, I know where I want my lockout position to be in terms of my rack position. So just doing some, like, say, high Zercher yoke pickups, where you're just doing some reps where you're going pick up, wait for a couple of seconds, drop it back down, pick up, wait for a couple of seconds, drop it back down. Just so you can spend, when you come to doing your Conans, you can spend as little time as possible in this bent over position. You can just attach yourself right to the edge of the bar, and then just stand up and you know where your rack position is going to be, you know, instead of feeling around for it here. So yeah, just practicing some heavy pickups, because you can see when he gets moving, when you get moving, look great, look brilliant. Rack position looks great. Footwork's good. Yeah, everything looks great. So we need to get that. You can see that it's wider than, you're closer to the weights than you need to be. So move out a little bit, providing you can get enough clearance there. And that's going to be helpful. Again, you're getting plenty of clearance here. You can get out another inch or so towards the side, in my opinion. Footwork looks good. You can see what doing well is the rack position's good in terms of similar to what works well for me in terms of tucking the almost getting the pelvis underneath the weight to basically take the load. And the more that you can do this and the load's balanced over your hips, the less strain that you're feeling through your arms as you do it. So yeah, great work, nice position, and that's why you're so enduring with the. Yeah, I like it. I just think you can tidy that pickup up a little bit. I think you just should almost be like a perfect deadlift, if you will, where the start position before you take the tension and your lockout position, your spine, your back and torso and your arms should just be in the same position. Whereas you can see as you take the weight up, you're shaking a little bit, and which in turn is going to make the instability of the Conans. You know, it's going to magnify that, and then it's going to take a second or two and a bit of wasted energy to get stable again, because you can see when you do get going, looks pretty good. A thing here, I would say doing some like Zercher holds in a rack with an axle bar, or Zercher yoke walks and stuff like that, because it looks to me now when you're getting moving, it looks to me that you're holding quite a bit of more tension in your arms than you need to. I thought it was just at the start, but it's all the way through, and it looks like if you can learn how to get loosen off your upper traps a little bit and let your arms and your lower traps sink down, which in turn will help you get a lower elbow position. It'll help the Conans be connected to the strong bit of your body, i.e. the hips, like reduce that moment arm. It's going to make any given weight feel lighter. But it just looks like you're holding a lot of tension then. You might have to loosen off your traps a little bit, your upper traps, and activate your lower traps a little bit to help you find that position. You might have to tuck the hips under a little bit to help facilitate this, and basically take the load over your hips more rather than in your arms. So this looks like a classic example of you're going to get to the point where your arms feel pretty smoked. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, I feel like getting a more efficient upper body position is going to help you level up. Move out, you're getting plenty of clearance. He's setting up too close to the weight there, working harder than he needs to. Elbow sleeves is also okay as a training thing if it's really hurting your elbows. But I would say if you learn a true rack position that's better, then you'll find a position that doesn't actually hurt the elbows. Much like when you learn to back squat, for instance, that first time you put a barbell on your back, it feels so heavy. Yeah, a weight that's light for you now that you can do for 20 reps feels so heavy the first time you put it on your back. But after a few sessions, it's not just that you desensitize to it or you toughen up or go through the pain barrier. It's that you do find a better rack position where you find the position where your joints are stacked. So yeah, explore this without the elbow sleeves, because they're also creating that disconnect, like you're losing that proprioceptive feedback of where it's sitting properly, and also creating a subtly more distance as well in terms of increasing that moment arm between the hips and where the Conans is attached to the body. And the footwork, this is an old video, he's a lot better nowadays, but it looks like he's stepping out a lot, whereas I would say slightly shorter steps with a faster turnover is going to be more stable and more energy efficient. You're a bit flat-footed as well. We try and find the balls of your feet. So he sent me this video, and he's really proud of this video. It's like one of his best comp performances. He did a lot better than anybody else on this event on the day, he said. So let's look at what he's doing really well. His joints are stacked, and he's in that position there that if he tried to hold this tension with his upper body, he'd have very little success, and it'd feel very, very heavy, and he'd drop it forward really, really quickly. So what he's having to do instead, he's having to find this joint stacked position. Feet are good, really patient footwork. He's basically found a really, really good rack position that's really nice and low. You can see how the Conans is really low, almost down towards his belly button. It looks like his upper body isn't moving or whatsoever. It looks really, really good. Looks really, really connected. It looks like he's not trying to step out too much. So he's every step is stable. He's got a consistent turnover. He's not going fast and then then going slow. He's just basically finding a really efficient position with a rack, finding a really efficient footwork, stride and turnover that he can go to his leg limit on this. That's what it looks like. It looks like how much juice has he got in his legs. It looks like he's not going to stumble and miss a step and fall over. He's not going to fail because his arms are smoked. Yeah, his positioning is really, really good. I would say if you wanted to get this even better, I would say over the course of time, if you practice this more, I would say just harnessing that degree in front of you with sacrificing this rock solid rack position for something that's going to give you a little bit more speed by just allowing the Conan to be a couple of degrees out in front of you. I think will help, which you can only practice by practicing it, by doing like a Zercher yoke and doing some faster work, slightly faster than this. And the thing that you may find helps you with that is you can see that your head's very, very far behind the thing. I think having a play with your head forward a little bit and almost allowing your shoulders to come forward, which is going to put the Conans in front of you a little bit more, but then offsetting what you're going to lose in rack stability by having a go at tucking the hips under, may find it helpful.